My name is Dr. Joseph Munyua. Today we are focusing on the literature review. In both one's research proposal and study, the literature review is an important section that should be made to occupy its specific chapter. A good literature review may bring about a research idea and doable study. In that vein, this lecture seeks to explain the meaning and importance of the literature review. Above and beyond that, the same lecture attempts to describe the mode of carrying out the literature review. The literature review is the review of the relevant literature in a particular field of study. In this sphere, the involved critical review of the pertinent literature is more detailed than the review of the same in the realm of the background to the problem. Besides, in the area of the literature review, the involved researcher cautiously retracts the existing relevant knowledge in a particular field. Again, note that the background to the problem and the problem statement are always part of the introductory chapter of the researcher's work. But on account of its indispensable value, the literature review occupies its own detailed chapter. In a nutshell, the literature review enables your intended readership to, among other things, identify the specific gap in the existing relevant literature which your study will address or address. Accordingly, by its very nature, the realized gap in knowledge conveys the definite purpose of the study, namely the intended task, the aim, or the focus of the study. Strictly speaking, therefore, the literature review is the review of the existing literature which deals with the matters concerning your study, especially your research problem. In brief, the literature review involves unfolding what has been stated, unstated, and incorrectly stated in your area of study and discovering the flaws and the holes in the said available literature. In view of that, in the review of the relevant literature, you should focus on several relevant books, previous researches, book reviews, encyclopedias, journal articles, magazines, internet works, newspapers, and so forth in order to dig out what has been done, what has not been done, and what has been wrongly done in your area of study. The literature review, therefore, helps the researcher to avoid, among other things, duplicating an already conducted study. In addition, this review of the current relevant literature enables the researcher to make the involved study original, creative, and enticing to the intended readers. Surely, there is no substitute for a good literature review before embarking on a research journey to a successful, varied, and reliable study. Therefore, in the section of the literature review, the researchers should show their readers that they are aware of the current and past researches in their topics and demonstrate that their studies will make a significant contribution to those existing studies, especially in the realm of creating new knowledge. Additionally, in this section, the researcher should give credit to other researchers who have laid the groundwork, evaluate, and synthesize their work, and differentiate the involved study from the relevant previous studies. Thus, the researcher should not turn this section into an empty piece of writing or a bland summary of the relevant literature. Strictly, the researcher should sum up the relevant existing studies in a scholarly manner that, among other things, grabs the reader's attention and exposes the knowledge gap that the research will attempt to fill or attempted to fill. All in all, as said above, the literature review should enable the researcher to identify and explain the flaws, namely the errors, weaknesses, or invalidating defects in the relevant literature. In the end, the researcher should be able to identify and explain the resultant gap in knowledge in the previous studies and other scholarly works. As mentioned previously, this endeavor demonstrates the definite purpose of the study. Again, as you would expect, the aforesaid flaws and gap in knowledge provide justification for the intended study or the finished study. In a word, the realized gap in the current literature regarding one's area of knowledge helps the researcher to formulate the definite research purpose that in the end facilitates him or her to create the research objectives and the research questions. Incidentally, the research questions are obtained by means of converting the research objectives into interrogative questions. In a word, it is important to emphasize that the realized gap in the existing relevant literature and the resultant realization of the definite research purpose may make the researcher to reconsider his or her research title, background to the problem, research problem, purpose of the study, research objectives, and research questions which he or she had tentatively stated. Remember that the above mentioned definite research purpose should facilitate the formulation of the research objectives, whilst the said research objectives should shape the formulation of the research questions that the researcher will strive or strived to answer. Thank you for listening. For further information about research, buy and read my ebook that is titled Basics of Research and Academic Writing, a textbook for research students and lecturers. Bye for now.